Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rob Curtis, and this is my friend Tom Kinnair, and we're back here for another rousing version of The Lawyers. If you haven't watched our show before, and by the way, if you haven't, then you're probably in the vast majority in this valley, but if you haven't seen us before, you know, this is a show about the legal process, what Tom and I do, how we try to help people, and we really thought this would be a good time to be making a show because with the in the middle of the pennant race and football season starting, most people have their shows all picked out. But if you don't like baseball or for some reason you don't like football and you don't want to see Downton Abbey, then I would really strongly advise you to give The Lawyers a chance.
But there's only about 10 people left who don't do that right. But anyway, I don't mean to interrupt.
And that's true. And I mean, we do a few lawyer jokes too. I actually, I didn't even get a chance to tell Tom this. I broke a mirror this morning. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, and they... of course, that's 7 years bad luck, but my lawyer thinks he can get me off with 5. So,
who's your lawyer, Rob?
He prefers not to be.
Oh, okay.
He prefers not to be.
But
after that little silly introduction, I know Tom's got some important things to say, and we'll segue dead on over to Tom.
Thank you. Let me just introduce myself, and then Robin will do the same. For those of you who've watched us before, all 10 of you, you know this already. I'm Tom Kinnair. I'm an attorney in Claremont, New Hampshire. I'm engaged in the general practice of law, and the name of the law firm is Leahy, Denault, Kinnair, and Hodgman. And we have been in that area serving Sullivan County since the 30s. No, I haven't been there myself since the 30s, but we, as Robin alluded to, what do we do for a living? We help people navigate the legal system, the court system, and we strive for justice for all, and that's what I view my primary role to be. My firm is, as I said, a general practice firm. We have 4 attorneys. We do nuts to soup to, you name it, bankruptcy, family law, civil litigation, probate, across the board. I personally focus on probably 30 to 40% of my practice is personal injury law, and that's where our firm associates with Robin's firm. And Robin can explain more. His firm is strictly litigation, and I think most of that is personal injury. And so together we work on a lot of cases, and again, through that system, strive to basically help people. So that's kind of a quick intro to who I am and what I do, and I enjoy it, and hope to be doing it for years to come. And now I'll segue back to you, Robin.
Well, thanks. And you made me a little nervous, Tom, because you started by saying you were engaged. And since I know you've been married for a long time, I was going to ask what Kathy thought about that, your wife. But Tom's right that we do a lot of cases together. Tom is one of the great guys of New Hampshire practice. He was a naval officer, a Vietnam era vet. He's just, I can't say enough about what a great guy he is. And so he's somebody that we really like working with. And I'm a trial specialist, for better or for worse. That's what I do. But the thing that I don't know that people get is that because it's my specialty, most of the people that I represent don't ever have to go to trial, because the folks that I deal with on the other side are kind of well aware of my firm and what our resources are and what our track record is, and it means that we don't have to try an awful lot of cases if we do our job right. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to go back to Tom, but a little bit about what trial preparation is, and talk about at what stage in trial preparation most cases settle, because most cases do settle. I mean, I've been part of 2 major trials in the last few months, but that's relatively unusual. So.
Yeah, let me just add here that Robin is not just a trial lawyer, but one of the best in the state of New Hampshire. He has achieved recently, and I know he won't pat himself on the back, but he's achieved verdicts in both New Hampshire and Vermont, which have been record 7-figure verdicts. And this isn't something that somebody off the street or a new lawyer could even think about. And these weren't lucky verdicts. These were verdicts that were through Rob's skills as an attorney, as a trial lawyer, that he advocated for helping people, and he rang the bell twice this year alone. He also won recently the what was formerly called New Hampshire Trial Lawyers Association, now the Association for Justice award recently by the Board of Governors for his skills as a trial attorney. So I think it's a very apt time to talk about some of the machinations that go into a trial based upon a high-quality trial lawyer who has achieved these record verdicts, and I think you will enjoy having so far the rest of the show.
Well, thanks so much, Tom. I really appreciate the kind words. I have to say that luck does have a lot to do with any trial, in my opinion, just like it has a lot to do with baseball games or football games. And there's never any stage at a trial where you think that you've got it in the bag. And for anybody who's ever tried to get some sleep the night before you close a case, all you can focus on is all the things that you've done wrong. In fact, I've got the greatest jury consultant in the world. I think he's just a guy named Jeff Larimer, and he's just fantastic. But the night before I tried a case that I tried in April that went very well, Jeff called me up, and he's my jury consultant. All he could do was tell me everything that I had done wrong and what I had to fix in the closing. And I did try the best I could to fix it. But one of the things that I want people to understand is that, especially in bigger cases, and by the way, just like Tom's firm, we handle all kinds of cases. We handle cases from people that get rear-ended and have a neck or a shoulder injury and miss some work, to cases that are worth, well, in one of our recent cases, ended up with a verdict of more than $40 million. But when you are preparing the larger cases, I wonder if people really realize everything that goes into it. And one of the things I want to talk about, and Tom knows something about this because he and I have worked on some pretty, what I like to think are pretty important cases together, is focus groups. So when I have a case, or I'm involved in a case, it's not my case, but if I am the attorney in a case where the verdict potential is, hundreds of thousands of dollars and above, and even sometimes for cases that don't have that kind of verdict potential, I always bring the case in front of focus groups, just groups of people that we advertise for in the newspaper, to get their take on it. The reason for that is that the juries who decide these cases, they're not lawyers, and they don't think like lawyers, they don't talk like lawyers, they're not kind of processed the way a lot of lawyers are, and I'm sure I kind of am too, although we all like to think we're a little different, but my wife will tell you that when I argue with her, I sound like a lawyer to her. But when we focus these things, tell the story of these cases to these focus groups, the information that we get back is invaluable. Is that anybody old enough to remember the Art Linkletter show? And I think that Tom was about probably 40 when the show started. But if you remember that show, he used to say that kids say the darndest things, and focus groups do too. They always point out things about cases that never occur to us if we prepare them for 6 months and do nothing but look at the case 10 hours a day. A focus group always comes up with something that we missed.
Yeah. And let me
absolutely.
Say too that lawyers, it's easy to forget that the decision makers in these complicated, sometimes very technical trials, where there's medical testimony, there's engineering testimony, there are all kinds of expert witnesses. The decision makers are people off the street. It's not the judges that make the decisions, it's the jury. And what amazes me, having attended some of these focus groups, is, you advertise in the paper, you bring them in, they don't know whether you're for the plaintiff or the defendant, but boy, they get it. Now, that doesn't mean a jury can't be wrong, but most of the time, and I think Robin would agree, they get it. And that's why it's very important to get their feedback, particularly in the higher end cases, because we may be, we're trained as lawyers, we go to school, a lot of years practicing, but sometimes it's easy to lose focus on the forest for the trees, and that's where focus groups, I think, are amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And sound like there's some kind of problem.
Sounded like somebody dropped a bunch of dishes, but maybe you didn't pick that up. That's okay.
That's right. It sounds like they got the situation under control. And in the larger cases, we have focused cases more than once. I could imagine doing it in the right case at least 3 times. Tom and I were working together on a very, very important case that we focused once and then were able to settle it after. But if that case had not settled, I know for sure that we would have done it at least one more time. The other thing that is that I'm not sure that folks realize is that trial law is a team approach. So when I was giving, I gave a closing statement in a case that I tried in the spring that went very well, and I can tell you that everybody on my trial team had input into what I said, and my jury consultant's input was just invaluable. So I sometimes joke that you know, he just wrote me a script and then I read it. And I mean, I guess I had a little something to do with it, but it is a team approach. In the case that we were involved in Burlington with our client who got this huge verdict, we had the great fortune, and don't do this very often, but of associating with out-of-state counsel. And the team that they brought to Vermont and the way that team worked, they had a war room that worked round the clock for 3 weeks. And I mean, during the 3 weeks we were at trial, there seldom was not somebody in that war room doing something to advance the case. And I am a big, big believer that trial law is a team sport and that one person can't do it. And for the people we represent, we can't give all our attention to every case in our office all the time, of course, because there's only 6 or 7 of us. But when those cases go to trial, our attention, our whole group is focused on one thing, and that is getting the best result we possibly can, be it by, and Tom knows this very well, be it by verdict or by settlement, because I believe that we probably achieve our best settlements when the other side, the insurance companies, see that we are fully prepared to go to trial. The concept is exactly the same, and I've said this on this show before, but it's exactly the same as in the Middle Ages, where if 2 kings were trying to negotiate, they would both get their armies out in the field where the other guy could see them, and so they had an understanding of what was coming if they didn't reach some kind of an accord. And I know it may seem a little bit immature, but it hasn't really changed. In Tom and my business, it hasn't really changed very much.
And it's true. To the insurance companies, it's a calculation of risk analysis they go through, and part of that analysis is who is the attorney and how far are they willing to go? Are they willing to go to trial? And they know the different attorneys that will and won't. And if they know you're not willing to go to trial, the value of your case goes way down. And insurance companies in New Hampshire know that both Robin and our firm, whether we actually try the case or associate with Robin on it, we're willing to go the distance. And it's not an idle threat as some lawyers would make. I have on occasion had a client come in and say, not a client, a potential client, who would say to me, I don't want to really sue this guy, I just want you to send him a threatening letter so that maybe we can settle something. I said, look, I don't do threat letters. If I do a letter and there's consequences if they don't do what I say, I will file suit, but I'm not going to write a threatening letter. So having Robin on your side and us on your side makes a big difference when the insurance company gets the demand letter, and they know we will prepare the trial, prepare the case either for settlement or trial, and do it right. Let me also say it's trial law, and Rob just attested to this. Most of it is not the glamour of a 30 or 60 minute TV show. Most of it's hard work, researching, talking to people, taking depositions, and what you see, I don't know what percentage would be the actual trial, but for every minute at trial, there's probably an hour that is spent. So it's mostly preparation, and good preparation is what good lawyers do, like Robin.
I think that's exactly right. And I think one thing that Tom and I have in common is that most of our cases, the majority of our cases, settle at mediation, which is something that everybody, and by the way, I handle cases in both Vermont and New Hampshire. I've handled them in New York State, in Massachusetts, in Maine, in Connecticut, where I'm from. I always have to scratch my nose during this show, and I just committed that thing again. So I will go where I need to go to handle cases that I'm interested in, and I'll continue to do that. But most of our cases settle at mediation, which is where you sit down with the insurance company and the lawyer for the defense, and it's usually a couple of months before the trial. So things are developed enough that everyone should have a pretty good idea of where things are going. And I think I may have a little bit of a reputation at those things for saying things that the insurance companies don't want to hear, not because I'm trying to insult anybody, but I think so many lawyers talk in innuendo, and I don't do that. If the insurance company's got a crummy case, I say, you got a crummy case, you're not going to win. It doesn't have much to do with me, but you're not going to win it. If you try it against a wall, you're going to lose. And I think I've had the ability to make them see that I'm not just talking idly. I've also gone into mediations where I've said, you know what, this is a case we could lose. I've gone into mediations where I've said, most cases like this are lost. I think I can win it, but I'm going to concede that slip and falls in the wintertime are very difficult cases to win in Vermont and New Hampshire because people think it happens. So I've gone into a mediation and said, if you look at the statistics, then I'm going to lose this case. But the guy sitting next to me, he's not a statistic. He is who he is. And he's got his own story, and I think that I can win it. And I have had some luck winning cases that people thought would be very difficult to win. And I've lost cases too. Any trial lawyer has, and I'm not pretending for a second that I haven't. But only reason I say that is, and I want to get back to Tom because I think I've hogged a lot of the show, but most folks who have an injury case, a medical malpractice case, a products liability case, a sex abuse case, all cases that we handle, don't end up in front of a jury. But the times that we do end up in front of a jury, I think confers a benefit on our other clients because hopefully the people in the know around New England see enough of us that they get it through their heads that we have some idea what we're doing.
Let me just, we don't have much time left, comment. We're not here to promote ourselves or how great we are. I say if you're going to pick a lawyer, the best way to do it isn't by going through the phone book and going for the most colorful ad, but by talking to people who have used lawyers, who have confidence in their lawyer, and who achieved a great result. That's the best way to get a lawyer. Certainly you can contact us, particularly relating to personal injury, but it's very important that there be that trust relationship between an attorney and a client. And I think in dealing with certainly our firms and many firms in New Hampshire and Vermont, they're the smaller firms that can give you the more personalized touch than the bigger firms can. Let me also follow up on what Rob said. If you win all your cases, I don't believe you're taking difficult cases. Not all cases can be won, and if you're only taking the ones on the top that are no-brainers, I think you're not doing justice to those people who may have a difficult case. And Robin and I both, it doesn't have to be a slam dunk, it doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar case, but we'll try to achieve justice for you, whether you're the little guy in the street or, you know, the big guy with a lot of money who has serious injuries. So.
And yeah, and can I say one thing about
Absolutely.
that, Tom? That I want to also say something about my partner Ed Van Dorn, who really was my, you know, he's the one who tutored me and taught me a lot of what I know about trial law. And the one thing about Ed is that he would take cases that other lawyers would look at and they're unwinnable, you know, we can't do anything for those people. But Ed is one of those guys who leads with what's right here. And if he felt that case there, he'd take it. And he didn't win every one of them, but I can tell you he got some pretty amazing results in cases that people thought, you know, just you wouldn't have a chance. So I owe an awful lot to the way he approached it.
And I think we share that focus. Yeah. And you know, why we're lawyers, why we're practicing law. Yeah, we got to pay our bills and hopefully put our kids through college with the money we make, but we're also not in it just for the buck, and if we were, we wouldn't be practicing where we're practicing and serving the people that we are serving. So we're focused on doing justice for all, and it may sound trite, but that's what we do for a living.
That's very well said.
Once again, we thank you for bearing with us for a half hour, and we will work on some of our warm-up jokes here, Robin. I mean, you did okay today, but we will be soliciting any suggestions from the public, and we hope you've enjoyed us and that you watch us again.
Thanks, folks.